Hey everybody, it's Brian Shannon from AlphaTrends.net. Today is Friday, the 12th of November, 2021. Hope you had a good week in the markets. The markets basically were down a little bit here for the most part. The exceptions were the financials, which were up 0.3%, 30 basis points, and the semiconductors, which are the strongest group. They added another 1.5% to bring their year-to-date gain close to 38%. So let's take a look at the charts. Here's the daily chart of the S&P 500. We're still clearly in an uptrend above the rising 20 and 50-day moving average, above the volume weighted average price from where the buyers most recently regained control. And today we got back above the week to date volume weighted average price. So on balance, the buyers were in control even though the market was down slightly for the S&P 500. The average participant is making money on the long side. And what we want to do is also put a volume weighted average price off this recent low. And you can see how yesterday we found buyers there. So next week, I think the 464-ish level will be our first important level to see if this market can continue to show strength. There's nothing here suggesting that it won't. But if it does pull back a little bit deeper, then we can look at the volume weighted average price from where the buyers regain control and where we do a handoff as well. And that would bring us down to about 460 if we do break down. And I think that, again, 464 is probably the level we want to see the S&P 500 hold. In Wednesday's video, I had said, maybe there was an opportunity for a short sale, but it was only if the market rallied up and then pulled back down and then shorted on the way down. We don't want to do that. Short, obviously, when it's not. We don't want to just blindly guess where the top is. That's how you get into trouble on the short side. The NASDAQ also finished above its week-to-date volume-weighted average price after it came down and tested this one. The daily time frame still clearly in a strong uptrend. We're a little bit extended here, but still the market's digesting these gains very well. I don't think that we're 100% ready to rally to new all-time highs yet, but the path of least resistance is to the upside. So as they say, news and surprises tend to follow the direction of the trend, and the trend is innocent till proven guilty. Look at this monthly chart. It's just incredible how strong this market is. And the Russell 2000 holds on to its breakout gains. Here on the daily time frame, we had discussed that it was nice to see a strong break through that resistance because it gave us some ability to pull back without ruining the breakout. So we saw again that what we want to see and typically see in equities is expanding volume in the direction of the trend, the biggest volume typically near the short-term turning point, and then lighter volume as the trend pulls back. It shows that there's not a lot of aggressive selling taking place, and that's a bullish thing. We held above the volume weighted average price from this low down here where the move began, and you can see that was pretty much almost perfect where the buyers regained control there. Now we are slightly below the volume weighted average price for the week and the declining 5-day moving average. I don't view that as a negative thing, and this market is now pinching between these two volume weighted average price levels. And just because it's in a pinch doesn't mean anything. It's just saying basically that we are seeing the energy consolidate in here. I'd like to see it maybe pull back again, create a higher low, and then be able to get going. If it were to do something like that, it would be better than just to break higher. Although, you could probably set your stop under here if that were to happen. But it's good to see, several tests of these two levels as that energy compresses and gets ready to build for a breakout. Either way, I think above probably 240, what is this? Just 240.85 or so next week puts the buyers back in control of the intermediate term trend, which is of course in alignment with the daily and weekly time frame, which are higher. So the path of least resistance is higher. Look for resolution to the upside is most likely. Semiconductors got back above their week to date volume weighted average price. They didn't come down where I was thinking they would have the ability to maybe come down and test this VWAP from the October 28th gap up, but we were stronger instead. Now again, we want to put a volume weighted average price off of that low. 296 will be our first important level to hold up above next week. If we break below that, we could see a little bit further pressure, but I'm certainly not calling for a movement back to the downside and come down all the way. the market is still in a primary uptrend. The biotechs are garbage, leave them alone. XBI, as I had mentioned, it's looking more constructive, but it's still in this bigger range. There's really nothing going on here to keep in mind. And, this is pinching between the volume weighted average price year to date and the volume weighted average price from this low in 2020, but it's been in there, for the last 6, 8 months. Just being in a pinch doesn't mean that it's actionable. We want to see, in this case for the XBI, I'd like to see it rally up, pull back, create a higher low, and then get going. I wouldn't want to buy it on a break right here because it would be extended. But if it were to rally up to there, get rejected one more time, create a higher low, and then you could even buy it right here with a stop underneath that level. That's anticipatory analysis. Let's see if the market can do that. It's by no means a market call because currently on the 15-minute time frame, you can see we're below a declining 5-day moving average, and it's going to need to do some work in here to resolve itself back to that upside. The financials are holding on to their gains and doing so in a very healthy way. They're holding above the volume weighted average price from this shakeout low, and we still have a rising 20-day moving average. When we look at the 30-minute time frame, the key support remains at about 39.75ish. As long as we're above that, I would look for this to resolve itself to the upside. If, however, we break down and then get trapped under there, that would be a different story. Again, it's not a prediction because the primary trend is higher, and a trend once established is more likely to continue than it is to reverse. Energy names are still holding up above their breakout point. They're just kind of resting in here. Taking a look at some stocks, CWH, I mentioned this one on Twitter this week. This got back above the volume weighted average price from the all-time high. There's a pretty good short position in here. It trades 1.2 million shares. Earnings have already been released. So when we look to the 30-minute time frame, you can see, the volume weighted average price from this low we're holding. We hand it off. We're just on that. So I think for this stock to really get the upward momentum, it's going to have to clear above this level, and then a stop would go under here. And if you were to get involved in that regard, then if it were to come down and break that stop first, it would change the nature of the risk, and I would be very careful about getting involved because the parameters change. LUMN is another one that I had mentioned, and this one is breaking from this little flag. It's starting to look decent in here. I had also mentioned ATEN, and this one is starting to look like probably back above today's highs. It could get going on ATEN. I had also mentioned a solar stock, NOVN, and NOVA. And Nova, you can see here, this one came right back to the volume weighted average price from this low. I didn't buy it there. It's not my preference to buy on the volume weighted average price pullbacks because we don't know, but if they're going to resolve. Some people like to buy there. I like to see that the stock can set up from there and we have a higher low. So I'll be watching for this one to get moving next week. I'll also be looking at BROS, which reported earnings, and this one is kind of pinching as well. It's between the volume weighted average price from this peak right here and from this low right here. So you can see on a closing basis, it's right at it. And this is why, let's go back to the 30-minute time frame. This is why I don't really like to buy on the pullback to the volume weighted average price. As I often say, it's not an action point, it's a level of interest to look at it on a shorter term time frame and say what's going on. Well, when we have a declining 5-day moving average, that tells me it's still early. If we look at the 15-minute time frame for a little bit more granularity here, you can see that the company reported earnings on Thursday. Thursday it gapped higher and then sold off, and it's being rejected by that volume weighted average price. So in order for me to get excited about BROS, I'll show you what I would like to see in here is something along the lines of, it rallies up like this, perhaps up to, maybe slightly through that level, get some people involved. It would be extended there, and then to see it pull back, this 5-day moving average flattens out, and then the stock kind of does something like this. I would be a buyer right above this level right here, and then have a stop underneath whatever that most recent relevant higher low is, rather than just trying to blindly buy into a level of support, which doesn't look like it's holding a support right yet. Anyways, that's just an idea of how I look at some of these stocks. I break them down each and every day for Alpha Trend subscribers. If you're viewing this on YouTube, please, like it, make a comment, let me know what you're thinking. Have a good weekend.